Welcome back to History of Resilience. In our last episode, we left the 6th Mississippi Infantry under General Joseph E. Johnston, bloodied but unbowed after the fierce fighting at Peachtree Creek, Georgia. They had fallen back into the trenches to help defend Atlanta against General Sherman's relentless advance. By the summer and fall of 1864, Sherman's strategy had become brutally clear. He wasn't just fighting Confederate armies. He was waging war on the South's ability and will to fight. His troops cut railroads, destroyed supply depots, and lived off the land, systematically breaking the Confederacy's backbone. Atlanta, a vital rail and manufacturing hub, was the prize. The 6th Mississippi, along with the rest of the Army of Tennessee, now under General John Bell Hood, fought desperately in several costly offensives. Despite their fierce counterattacks, they could not stop Sherman. Atlanta fell on September 2nd, 1864. Sherman's numbers and momentum were simply overwhelming. After Atlanta fell, Hood's battered army embarked on a grueling campaign north into Tennessee, hoping to draw Sherman away. But Sherman had other plans. He turned his main forces east toward the sea, beginning his famous march to the sea, and leaving a trail of destruction, while the remnants of the Western Confederate armies fought on with dwindling resources and fading hope. Mid-November found the 6th Mississippi waiting to cross the flood-swollen Tuscumbia River into Tennessee. On November 26th, they camped just south of Columbia, where Union forces under General Schofield were stationed. 2 days later, Hood, attempting a flanking maneuver east of Columbia to cut off Schofield's retreat, but the Union slipped away under cover of darkness while the Confederates slept only 600 feet away. Hood ordered his exhausted, cold, and starving men to pursue the Union Army to Franklin. There, on November 30th, the 6th Mississippi took part in one of the most devastating frontal assaults of the entire Civil War. Despite heavy opposition from his generals, Hood ordered the attack across an open field against strongly entrenched Union forces with cannons and muskets ready. The 6th, positioned on the right of the Confederate line, advanced under murderous fire. They reached the Union's breastwork and fought desperately in the ditch, but could go no further. The Battle of Franklin was a catastrophe for the South. Thousands of Confederates lay dead or wounded on the field, including many senior officials. The 6th Mississippi suffered heavy losses, but fought with distinction. As the night fell, the Union withdrew towards Nashville. The survivors, many barefoot in freezing sleet, continued the pursuit to Nashville, arriving on December 8th with almost no ability to warm or feed themselves. The war had become a brutal test of endurance. They continued with Hood's battered army northward to the Battle of Nashville in December 1864, another devastating defeat. From there, the remnants of the 6th Mississippi eventually linked up with General Joseph E. Johnston's forces for the final Carolinas campaign. By early 1865, the Confederacy was collapsing on all fronts. Yet Mose and what was left of the 6th Mississippi kept fighting. The depleted regiment was loaded onto trains and sent east to Augusta, Georgia, and then up into North Carolina. On March 9, 1865, they arrived in Smithfield. A week later, the roughly 21,000 Confederate troops in the area, including the 6th Mississippi, now reduced to just 270 exhausted men, were rushed to nearby Bentonville. There, on March 19th, Stuart's corps, of which the 6th was a part, hid silently in the thick woods alongside a road. A Union force marching right past them. At approximately 3:15 p.m., the order came to attack. The Confederates struck the unprepared Union lines with such fury that the blue lines broke and ran. Fierce hand-to-hand fighting erupted. After several hours of savage combat, the Union Army fell back and was pursued for some distance. By dark, however, the Union had reorganized and successfully held the Confederates at bay. Under cover of darkness, the Southern forces withdrew to their original positions. Confederate casualties for the day exceeded 2,600 men. In the following days, the Confederate repulsed Union attacks, but by March 22nd, their position was nearly surrounded. They withdrew towards Smithfield, with the 6th Mississippi serving as rear guard, making it back during the first week of April. Even as the war was clearly lost and many men slipped away for home, Moses remained with his unit until the bitter end. After 4 long, brutal years, Bull Run, Ball's Bluff, Vicksburg, Peachtree Creek, Franklin, Bentonville, and countless deadly skirmishes in between, Moses had miraculously survived it all. Before the news of Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse even reached them, General Johnston issues Special Order No. 13, reorganizing the shattered Army of Tennessee. The 6th Mississippi was officially dissolved. For many of the men who had fought together since the very beginning of the war, this was the final heartbreak. Several men from the 6th left in disgust and headed home. But Moses stayed. He became part of the last major functioning Confederate force under General Richard Taylor. This small army of about 12,000 men represented one of the very final organized Confederate commands still in the field. On May 4, 1865, at Citronelle, Alabama, General Taylor surrendered, one of the final major surrenders of the entire Civil War. Moses Oliver Walters, the Piney Woods renegade, who had volunteered before he had to at the very beginning, had stayed until the Confederacy's last breath. After the surrender in Alabama, the long journey home began. Moses, like thousands of other paroled soldiers, set out on foot or by whatever means he could find, making the weary trek back across the ruined South to Sevilla and their children in Rankin County, Mississippi. The state he returned to was devastated. Farms lay in ruins, railroads were torn up, towns were burned or abandoned, and the economy was in complete shambles. Social order was upended. For former renegades like Moses, the dangers didn't end with the war. Old grudges lingered, and life under Reconstruction brought new uncertainties and hardship. The obstacles after the war were immense. Reconstruction brought federal oversight, political upheaval, and economic collapse. Many former Confederates faced suspicion and violence. For those who had been part of the Free State of Jones resistance, there was an additional danger from neighbors who had remained loyal to the Confederacy. Land was hard to hold, taxes were crushing, and simply surviving day to day was a struggle. Hoping for a fresh start, Moses moved his family to Tyler, Texas. They applied for and received a 150-acre land grant, but peace was not easily found. Moses developed skin cancer. They struggled to pay taxes and eventually lost the land. Tragedy struck again when Sevilla died at just 40 years old with complications of childbirth. Heartbroken, Moses and his surviving children returned to Rankin County, Mississippi. He lived out his final years there, known locally as Old Mose. He passed away in 1887 at the age of 57, still carrying the scars, physical and emotional, of the war and hard life that followed. Moses' journey is one of the most remarkable I've uncovered in our family. He volunteered before he had to in 1861, survived some of the war's bloodiest battles, became a Piney Woods renegade when his conscience demanded it, and then forced back into the fight. He stayed until the Confederacy's end. Through head wounds, starvation, hiding in swamps, and years of brutal combat, Moses endured. Thank you for watching History of Resilience. The post-show notes are coming right up. Welcome to the post-show notes. What happened to the former renegades after the war? Returning to Mississippi was extremely difficult for men like Moses. Reconstruction brought political upheaval, economic collapse, and violence. Many families, including Moses and Sevilla, eventually tried their luck in Texas with land grants, only to face new hardships and crushing taxes. After the war, many former Confederates viewed the renegades as deserters, bushwhackers, and mossbacks. Jones County gained a scandalous reputation, leading to a short-lived rename to Davis County after Jefferson Davis in 1865 to distance it from the harbor of deserters. Knight and his associates were outcasts. So Newt Knight, which we didn't go over very much in these episodes, but he was kind of the main leader of the main band, and he rarely entered towns and lived in the forest. Hard feelings persisted for generations, with some descendants embarrassed by the association. Political and racial tensions during Reconstruction. Knight and some allies aligned with Republicans, supporting freed slaves' rights, the Freedmen's Bureau, and voting protections. Knight led or supported black militiamen against violence. He opposed black codes, apprenticeship systems, which were a form to re-enslavement of the blacks, and he helped mixed-race families. However, this made them targets amid rising white supremacist backlash, including the Ku Klux Klan. Reconstruction's end around 1877, and the redemption by Democrats reversed gains, restoring white elite dominance and imposing Jim Crow. Basically, the Renegades' defiance left them marginalized in a society that romanticized the Confederacy, because that's what happened. Not too long after the war, then all this romanticism comes in about the lost cause. And a lot of the people that used to run things were back running things before too many years. So in summary, while their wartime resistance highlighted class tensions and unionist sentiment in a Confederate stronghold, the post-war era brought isolation, political defeat, and danger in a resurgent white supremacist South. Their story underscores the complexity of loyalty, class, and race in the piney woods, far from the united, lost cause, romanticized narrative.